Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and I'm by my. Oh no, I'm not. Surprise! I got Logan Stump with me today. What is this?
I'm back. I'm back, guys. I've come out of retirement. Ray Gaddis actually called me and was talking about the fact that I should just come out of retirement. Come back. You'll enjoy it. You'll play well. You'll be in the top, 4 spot in the East, and life will be great.
Got the LeBron James of podcasting with us
Like
today.
the phenom guy, right? He's like the LeBron James of soccer.
Podcasting, Logan Stump. I
missed you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well. This is one of those times where we haven't really spoken outside the show. You were so busy or just wanted some time off. I don't know, but could not get a hold of Logan.
I'll tell you off the show what was happening.
Yeah. I told people you had some car issues.
Yes.
You couldn't drive up here to record.
Yeah, I don't know if people know that, right? I mean, I don't know if people know that I commute every Monday, I think it is.
He sits
to Maryland.
right next to me, right here.
Let's see. Yeah, I know. I'm like, could you imagine your arms?
His arm came in. This was Logan after his car issue.
It's over. We are screwed.
That's what I thought about the podcast too. I thought we were over. Logan is back. How are you today, Logan?
I'm good. It's good to be back. Like, I'm excited to get back into it because I've just been over the last week and a half. I've just been swamped with so many different things because what's coming. The year's ending, so this is a brutal time for teachers. I know teachers, if you're listening, you can vouch for that fact that it's just so busy and hectic and chaotic. And then you throw in car troubles. And then another thing and then you have chaos. Chaos ensues. It's chaos. It's like a MLS at dark, right? It's like
yeah, just podcasting after dark.
Right. That's what my weeks felt like. And then I look at the table and I'm just going, oh my gosh, there's just so much I missed, and I had to watch some highlights and all sorts of different things. So bear with me.
Yeah, we had the Open Cup as well. Logan's Orlando gets to celebrate over my Union in the Stateside Soccer Show Derby, which the Union didn't really take that seriously. They didn't really put out a full squad. It left lots of Union fans very upset on Twitter. I among them, because this is something we haven't won. I'd like to win it. We've reached a final 3 times. I'd like to win it, but especially when you're on the road, I feel like that's probably not the best time to just send out another team. You could, the LAFC game, you probably could have sat some players in that game because that is a league game where you have plenty of ground to make up. But then the league results haven't been there for the Union either. 4 straight draws and a loss in their last 5 games. They've now slipped to 3rd place in the East, below Orlando and below, surprise, Montreal, who I talked about last week are rebranding. Did you see that, Logan? They're going to come out with a new crest. Yeah, because of the complaints. So we'll probably get that sometime soon, I guess. But
are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. Right? I'm not kidding.
I was looking at the calendar. I'm like, it's not April 1st, so we're well past that. What a joke. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess they're playing well, so they're like, you know what, we're playing well now. We need to rebrand. We can't be the same old crappy football club de foot.
I think they're keeping the name. I just think they're changing the crest. That's what it sounds like, anyway.
I got more beef with the name than I do the crest, I think.
Oh, I got beef with the crest too. I went over this whole thing last episode where I showed this and I said, look how boring this is. It's just a whole bunch of lines. It's like a snowflake, arrows, and that's it, right? And then a very basic circle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so plain. No character in it. So I'm thankful they're rebranding, but I went on this huge rant about how they can't just get it right the first time. We had to see it with this, right?
Yeah.
We had to see it with this, Chicago. Teams that are just it sounds like they've already made their decision on the crest, so it doesn't sound like they got fan feedback again. So this could be a whole disaster again. We'll see when that comes out, I guess. But
I think the rumors on the street are it's going to be like a Thierry Henry in the middle of a logo, just going like that.
or him with like his where he's leaning up against the goalpost.
Yeah, it'll be
Do one
great.
of those. Yeah.
It'll be like clip art.
But seriously, before we get into much of it here, just wanted to bring up some stats from Todd at the Free Kick. He's been on our show a few times. Philadelphia Union podcast, #1 Union podcast in Hartford County. But we have, 5 straight blown leads for the Union. For a team that's known for their defense, that's a problem. Another problem is their record when they go up a man, right? They have this week, we'll talk about this game in a little bit, but they had a lead against the Red Bulls. They get Red Bulls get a red card, and 11 minutes later, Red Bulls score. And for 24 minutes, the Union cannot get the lead. That's how long it was since the equalizer, and they actually had almost a whole second half. It was the 55th minute when Red Bulls got the red card. November of 2021, it was a 1-1 draw against NYCFC after a red card to NYCFC in the 21st minute. Union scoring the 26th, and NYCFC equalized in the 53rd. They lost a game up a man against Minnesota in October of 2021. It was a 3-2 scoreline before the 77th minute when Minnesota got the red card. That was an away game in Minnesota, already Minnesota up a goal, so that one's not too bad, I guess. There was a win for them against Orlando when Orlando got a red card in September of last year, but that was the 88th minute red card. They had already had the lead at that point. They sealed it with the Shabilko penalty kick. They lost a game in September last year to the Revs when the Revs went down a man in the 59th minute. Couldn't even equalize there. They drew against Chicago when Chicago went down a man in the 34th minute. They equalized in the 36th, Philly did, and then they could not take the lead in the rest of the game. And the Red Bull one in May of last year was Corey Burke scored in the 9th minute. The red card was in the 90+2, so not a big difference there. But it's becoming kind of a pattern where they're not winning games when they're up a man. This game was at home. They were up a man for a while. They've got to put these games away. You know, we're still waiting for Ura to really make it an impact. He's like missing games. He's, not starting a lot of games. That's been a problem. I don't know. I know it was a lot of games in a row for them with the Open Cup, and they had 2 straight away games before that, I think, and then the Open Cup game was away. So that's kind of been a tough stretch for them, but just something to keep an eye on here is they've fallen from first place now to 3rd. They still have a game up on Orlando, but they just they've only lost 1 game still, but they have 5 wins and 5 draws. If any of these other 4 draws have been a win or 2, they would still be top. And it's blown leads. It's not taking advantage of being up a man. That's the kind of stuff that's worrying right now. And this is a stretch the Union usually goes on every season. So they'll probably turn it around. They'll probably finish in a playoff spot and not much to worry about there. But it's just something that, we were all kind of saying, hey, they got their strikers now as they come into this season. Get your strikers, make a run, right? That's what we were all saying, and it doesn't seem like they've been able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the defense is still holding solid, like 9 goals given up. It's, I think, 2nd best in the league, so that's good. It's not the defensive issues, but it does. I mean, it sounds like, Jordan, what it comes down to is just that instinct to just take over games and complete games, like to finish games, and it's a big problem. And But you're right. Like I think it was this time last year that they kind of went into like a weird tailspin. And
Yeah,
then it
somewhere
wasn't
around
until
there.
then I remember towards the end of the season, it was like they couldn't be beat. So it was, I think clubs go through this. I think they're in a really good spot where they are. I think there's a lot of clubs that are kind of just shifting around in positions right now. Maybe more so, higher more so than they would be at the end of the year. But I mean, if you look at the Union, Daniel Gazdag leads their scoring in 6 goals. Jillian Carranza's 4. But I mean, like you said, if you want goals, and we were kind of worried about that at the beginning of the season, if they're not getting goals, then I think they're going to be pretty easy to beat. Just because I think they, like you said, they kind of just have gone flat at times and don't really know how to finish games.
There was a stretch in June 26th that started on my birthday, last year, to August 1st, where they won 1 game, drew 4, and lost 2. So that's, we're probably a month and a half ahead of schedule here. But they also didn't start off the season hot last year because of CONCACAF Champions League.
Yeah.
Also, they started the season later last year, right? So this game, how many games was this into the season? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This was game 11 that started. We've played 11.
Yep.
So you're right in the sense of how many games it's been. That yes, this is around that same time where they went through a pretty tough stretch.
Yeah, because I think I can kind of remember it. Like it felt like we were talking about them being title contenders early on in the season because their defense was so good. They've been playing really well in CONCACAF. I'm like, this is a good Union team, deep. And then all of a sudden, it was like they went into this spin, and then you got out of the spin cycle, and it was like they went on this run, and they marched through the playoffs. And had it not been for COVID, I think they ended up in an MLS final. It's interesting. And if anybody's going to pull them out of that rut, out of that draw rut, I think it's Curtin. Like I think that they've got the guys there. I think it's now just about can they get the finisher, and that's a big problem for teams in the playoffs too. Just you can't get to the playoffs and let these games just hang in the balance because you're just not going to win games like that. I know what scoring droughts feel like, so
yeah,
it seems like we're in one too, all the time.
Another big thing that is kind of similar to that stretch last year is that it was mostly away games compared to home games.
Mm-hmm.
This year it's 3 away, 2 home. Last year in that stretch I talked about was 5 away and 2 home. So guess what? They have 1 more home game against Inter Miami, and then they have 2 straight away again. So that would be 5 away games and 3 home in that stretch. If they can, they'll have to turn it around against Miami on the 18th, I think, which is a Wednesday game, as we'll talk about. We have Wednesday games as well. But all right, but let's talk about Montreal, Logan. They've had 4 wins in their last 5. Mihalovic has 6 goals on the season, and they now have 6 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses, and have played 11, have 20 points, and they sit above Orlando and Philly. And like I said, they haven't lost in their last 5 games, which is a pretty impressive feat. They're somehow sitting top of the East when a lot of people thought they weren't going to be as good. They've kind of been a surprise team last year and this year. Just what are your thoughts? Is it all Mihalovic, or what happens when he cools down? Do they still have what it takes to maybe stay near the top?
I mean, they're getting goals from everywhere. They've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 6 defenders that have a goal to their names. So that's kind of impressive. But I mean, the Mihalovic thing, they're just riding an MVP type of season. I mean, not to the same extent.
3 assists too.
Yeah, not to the same extent as Hani Mukhtar, because I think Nashville's overall a better team, or had been a better team. But I think a lot of this it rides on Mihalovic. I think. Yes, I think they can be a playoff team. No, I don't think they're still one. I mean, if he continues to play like that, they're a top team just because he's getting goals that he normally doesn't have. But if you look at their numbers, their defense is still not solid. They don't have one of the better defenses, and that in this league, that'll just eat you alive in the playoffs. If you give up goals in this league, it's really hard to compete just because this game, this league, they'll just open the game. They don't care. Like these other big teams, like could you imagine them going up against Philly in a playoff game? I just don't think it would go well right now. If you manhunt Mihailovic, if you just mark him and put a mark on him in the midfield, then you really take him out of the game. You take out their attack, because if you look at it, Romel Kyoto, I know he's your boy, but
yeah,
I think,
boy.
I think a consistent Romel Kyoto is non-existent. I think at times he goes
3 goals, 2 assists.
spurts. Yeah, but I think he's not somebody you look at. He's not like a Chicharito. He's not like a Sebastian Fierro. He's not like a Driussi. Like he's not one of those guys that's prolific. And I think that's kind of what they need to be, one of those top tier teams. Now, if they get that this summer, I think if they get like one of those really top, wingers or maybe a goal scorer to kind of add into that mix, then I think this team becomes more exciting. But I don't know. I still like
the Kamara signing.
Yeah.
He's played, if we read his stats, 10 games played, only 2 goals, 2 assists. Maybe not so great, right? But 4 starts. 4 starts and having 2 goals, 2 assists, I feel like for somebody that came in kind of as a free agent, this is pretty good signing. At 37 especially, right? Like this might be one of his final seasons. I think that they can kind of keep this up a bit. One of the things they have going for them is that they're scoring goals, right?
Yes.
22 goals for is second most in MLS. Tied for first is LAFC and Austin. So they're in good company there. When you look at the other teams like Orlando and Philly near the top of the East, they have 14 and 16. Cincy has 16. Red Bulls have 17. NYCFC have 21, right? NYCFC have only given up 10. They also have 1 game in hand of Montreal. So I'm actually looking at, while Montreal can stay near the top, I'm looking at NYCFC, who have been hot as well. 4 wins and a draw in their last 5 as well, same as Montreal, to start making that push up to the table. Because if they win their game in hand, Logan, they will have 20 points. That would even with Montreal. And Castellanos, 6 goals, same as Mihailovic, right? Feels like we've not really talked about Castellanos much this season,
right?
But he's starting to turn it on. NYCFC are starting to score goals. Really, they just started kind of going on that goal scoring run. 6-0 against RSL, 5-4 against TFC, 3-0 against San Jose, 2-0 against the Crew, and then that 0-0 against NYCFC on the 7th. And really, when we look at the Toronto game, that's 4 goals. That's 4 of the 10 they've given up. So if you take that game out, they've only given up 6. So I'm starting to look at, okay, NYCFC is getting hot. They'll probably take over first soon, and Montreal will fall. But I think Montreal has a really good shot at a top 4 spot if everything continues well for them. Because you're looking at if we just read out these top 7 teams right now, it's interesting, isn't it? We got Montreal, Orlando, Philly, Cincinnati. So where are Reds fans going to go? They're going to watch FC Cincinnati. Red Bulls in 5th, NYCFC in 6th, Atlanta in 7th. So that's kind of where we're at right now. For as much as we've talked about how impressive Charlotte's been, they're in 9th. DC United's in 8th. Crew is in 10th place. And I want to ask you about Crew, Logan. How much longer does Caleb Porter get? Because he won MLS Cup just in 2020, right? Yeah. Pretty handily, 3-0 result or whatever. But they're not doing anything. That makes me think, to be honest, that they're not going to replace him. He won an MLS Cup in the last year and a half. I feel like that's a hard thing to say you're fired, especially in this league. That's something that happens in like the EPL, I think. But, when we're looking at MLS, right, and when they're only still sitting 2 points out of a playoff spot, I have a hard time thinking that Caleb Porter's seat is super hot right now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, he won that MLS Cup too with a team that I don't think many thought were that deserving of it. Then they just got hot at the right
No,
time.
yeah.
One of the bottom playoff teams. So it is an interesting thought too. And I think another thing to add on to that, Jordan, is I think going into a new stadium, I don't really think they want like a reset. If it's going to be a reset, I think it's with Caleb Porter. I think he's a good coach. I just don't think I think the personnel just doesn't work together. And I think that's what we've kind of figured out. He's kind of one of those coaches. I don't know how to really explain. Like, I think it kind of has that same kind of thing. If like, I guess if, Conte was struggling right now, or if, Pep or Jurgen were struggling in EPL, I think you'd have that same kind of sentiment. I think it's the same thing with Greg Vanney, Peter Vermees. Like, I think there's just guys in the league that, is there really anything better out there? And I don't think there's anything quite like Caleb Porter. So I don't think right now is really his time. And like you said, they're not far out of the playoffs. And in this league, I mean, heck, I go absent for 2 weeks and Cincinnati's all of a sudden up in fourth place. And I think that's a big testament to kind of like how they play, but it also speaks to the craziness of this league. This league you're just never out of. So no, I don't think it's that hot, but I do think that the personnel just doesn't do it anymore. And they're not seeing they're not seeing some of these guys come around. I think like they thought. I mean, Pedro Santos as a goal hasn't played extremely well and is aging. I think there's concern there. They get rid of Giazzi Zardes. I mean, that's kind of. I think
Without
that was
a replacement, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Miguel Perry, but I mean, he's not.
He's young.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's played really well to begin with, but he's 24.
Yeah.
I mean, that's you and I talk about this. That's pretty old. So.
Yeah, but I guess he feels young because he came through, right? And he didn't feel like he had a lot of chances before this, right?
Yeah.
Like, they would get playing time, of course, but not to the standard where you're able to really see, I don't think, as much and be like, oh, we got to move Zardes for this guy. Like, that's something that I think hurts a bit. To me, it's a question of, is it the coaching or is it the players? And I feel like part of it is, as much as we thought this team was going to be really good last year and they weren't, I'm starting to think that run was a fluke. And not on just the coaching, but on the players. I think they had a really good postseason, won it all, unexpectedly. Everybody thought Seattle was going to crush them because of the injuries to Columbus. Then they bring in, some aging stars and some other players from teams, and we thought, oh, they've restocked. They're going to be great. And it kind of fell apart. And to me, I think that means it's just not as much of a coaching issue as much as it also is a personnel issue. So I think the players, they might need a refresh, but I think they would give Porter next year with an updated squad. And then if that doesn't work, then you think about moving on coaches. I mean, again, they're only 2 points of a playoff spot right now. So with the way Atlanta's been playing, it's conceivable for the Crew to get up there, but just something to keep in mind, as New England, who won the Supporter Shield, are now also languishing in 11th place with 12 points. They've been rough to watch, though they've been a little better. A win and 2 draws in their last 3 games. 2 wins and 2 draws in their last 5. But I'll tell you somebody who hasn't been fun to watch, Toronto. 5 straight losses. They lose to NYCFC 5-4. They lose to Cincy 2-1. They lose to Cincy 2-0. They lose to Vancouver 1-0. They lose to Orlando City 1-0. I think we were kind of jumping the gun on how fast Bob can make an impact here, because I do think he can, right? Again, only 4 points from a playoff spot. That's how tight it is in the East. It's a 10-point difference from first to last, compared to like the 15-point difference in first place. So I thought we just maybe jumped the gun a little bit there with Toronto. I think Bob can still make a little bit of impact, but I think they just need new players too. I really think they kind of have just an aging lineup at this time, if I'm not just BSing it. I mean, I'm trying to find like stats on.
No,
their
you do.
age.
Like, so you've got Michael Bradley is almost 35. Jesus Jimenez, who's played 12 games for him as a forward, almost 29. Pozuelo is almost 31. Then you got some young like guys.
Yeah, they have a
and
lot of
Petrasso.
19, 20, it looks like on here.
So it's like really aging guys and guys that
And
have
really
no clue
young.
what they're doing. It's like, because it's good for the younger guys, but I mean, these are, these kids are, I mean, they're 19. There's a 21-year-old and 19-year-old and Jaden Nelson. You also have Cozy Thompson. So, I mean, 19-year-old and just turned 19. And then you've got then the aging guys. Their defense has been awful. They thought bringing Carlos Salcedo in would be a help, and while he's had the pedigree of being a pretty decent player, it's just not worked out well for him. And they've given up 23 goals, which is tied for second to last with Sporting KC. And only San Jose's been more atrocious. So I don't think goal scoring is going to be their issue ever. I think it's just, like you said, Jordan, it's like an aging back end. Like it's that aging back end that's just not working anymore.
It seems their issue as well, right, is that they've played 12 games. They're one of the only teams that have played 12, and they're still in 12th place. Remember, there was a time where they were up in the playoff spot until these last 5 games or so, right? Like, they were bottom up to a playoff spot and then back down because we were like, okay, they've turned it around. They're doing better. And then all of a sudden it's back to the basement.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be thankful that Miami and Chicago are down there. Let's talk about Chicago, I guess, while we're down here too. 4 straight losses. Their leading goal scorers, Logan, are still Shaqiri and Shabilka with 2 goals. And, Gaga Slonina didn't have a great game against Cincinnati. They also lost 4-1 against Chicago, 2-1 against the Red Bulls, 3-0 against Minnesota. It doesn't seem like he's going to be able to have that clean sheet record he was going for here, as they've just been getting some big losses at a part where we thought they were a little bit more further ahead than where they are, I think. And it seems like this happens every few years for them. They're at the bottom.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not.
They don't even give up that many goals, 13.
Yeah,
but they just don't score.
No, and it's not an easy fix. Like the defense is usually the easier of the fix. I always feel like I feel like you can add 2 or 3 big difference makers, whereas like the attack, man, you've got to find guys that just work well seemingly together. And you and I talked about this, like besides Shaqiri and Shabilka, who are they going to get goals from? I mean, they gutted that roster. I think you and I were laughing at the fact that in behind Miami, it was like both of them were just like, you know what? We don't want anything back that we had. And when you do that, I mean, it's at least 2 to 3 seasons that you get anywhat of a competitive team back. And that's just, could you imagine being Shaqiri right now? Like, could you imagine like coming over from Europe and going, oh my God, like, how did they convince me here? And now Chris Mueller's added that mix. So it's like, oh my gosh.
To Matt's credit, Shaqiri hasn't done much for Chicago. Look, we talked about how they each have 2 goals, right? That's 4. That's half of Chicago's goals. They've only scored 8. You have Stanislav Ivanov with 1, Bornstein with 1, 04 with 1, and Duran with 1. And then you have the 2 of Shabilko and the 2 of Shaqiri. I don't even know the last time. Let's see. The last time like Shabilko and Shaqiri scored a goal? It had to have been a long time ago, I would think at this rate. Let me try to see if I can find that information out. Shabilko scored his 2 goals against SKC that same game, and Shaqiri scored 1 in that game. So out of those 4 goals that those 2 have combined for, 3 of them were in one match on March 19th.
Against one of the worst defenses in the league.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, and before that, they had won 2-0, and that was Stanislav Ivanov and Bornstein's goals. They won 2-0 against DC. And guess what, Logan? That was the last time. Those were the first. That was the 3rd game of the season, but their first goals of the season. they had those 2 straight draws with Inter and Orlando at 0-0. They've had 4 0-0 draws throughout the course of the season against Dallas, Galaxy, Orlando, Miami. They've lost to Orlando 1-0. They've beat DC and Sporting. And then they've lost to Minnesota, lost to Red Bulls, lost to Atlanta, lost to Cincinnati. Just a brutal stretch for Chicago. There was a part where they were actually doing very well. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm.
Up until April 2nd, they had not lost a game. They had 3 straight draws. They had 3 draws and 2 wins.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all fell apart from there, where they have not won since March 19th, that SKC game where Shabilko scored 2 goals and Shaqiri scored 1. That's bad.
Yeah.
And that Shaqiri goal is a penalty, by the way.
I was going to say he had a penalty. I remember that.
Yes. Yep.
So just not, I mean, but like it's so hard to, you can't just have, I think they thought.
They were the last undefeated team in the season.
Yeah. But I think they thought, let's hit a home run. I think some of these teams do this. Let's hit a home run with the name people know, but let's not put anything in and around it that's valuable. And I think that's what this league turns into. I think that's what Miami did too. Like if you look at Miami did it. They tried to do it last year with Brenner in Cincinnati, right? They tried that before with Frankie Amaya. So like, you've got guys like this. They throw in Luciano Acosta last year, and that's panned out well. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like it feels like they go for the home run ball in this league so much, and you can't just have one player. It's just not how this game works. Look at the teams that are at the top. I mean, you got teams that have guys that play well together, that have a cohesive unit. But these bottom of the league teams, if you look at them on the flip side, you're looking at teams that just kind of throw guys out there and they have the one big name or 2 big names, and they're like, oh, look at us, we're shiny. But are you really if you're not really competing that well?
Yeah, that kind of covers the East, right? I mean, Anybody else you want to speak about on the East before we move on to the West? I mean, we didn't really talk about Miami, but they're kind of going through the same issues. 2 losses and a draw in their last 5 with 2 wins. Those wins coming against Seattle and Atlanta.
I mean,
NYCFC lost to New England. Yeah. They lose to Charlotte, and they draw with DC.
NYCFC and Cincinnati are really hot.
Yeah,
but I mean, they've Cincinnati
4 straight.
Yeah, I will say though, Jordan, if you look at the games they've won, it's the Fire, Minnesota United. They beat Toronto FC, and they've also beat Toronto FC. So not the best of games, but that being said, they look so much better than they have in the past, and they don't look like a wooden spoon team this year. So that's good. That's some positive.
We'll see, but optimistic here, right? Yeah. They're 9 points from bottom, Logan. They're 1 point from the top.
Yeah.
Now, of course, they have a game in hand compared. I mean, they've played one more than Philly and Montreal, but yeah. The point that they're 1 point behind Orlando is impressive.
The fact that they're in the 4th spot, I don't think this would have been dream scenario. If you presented this to Cincinnati fans at the beginning of the season, you have a home playoff game spot in the middle of May, they'd be like, oh yeah, sign us up. This would be great. And it's so fun to kind of watch their fans because their fans have been in just such disarray for so long. So
there was a stretch where Cincinnati had more wins than the Cincinnati Reds in fewer opportunities. So that's just how bad the Reds were. But
and they've scored more.
It seems like there's got to be some sort of like Cincinnati curse, right? Like,
yeah, there is.
Like, okay, the Bengals were good, so now the Reds are going to be terrible, but there can only be one bad team because now the Cincinnati has moved up. I don't know. Maybe there's something to that because before the Bengals used to be really bad, the Reds were good. Cincinnati didn't exist. Yeah. FC Cincinnati didn't exist. We'll see. Let's go over to the West here as we get to LAFC sitting top. They lost, though, to the Rapids 2-0. Carlos Vela is their top goal scorer, but he's only scored 4 goals, but they've still scored 23. So they're really passing around pretty
Mhm.
evenly. They've won 3 in their last 5, and that one draw is against the Union 2-2. Dallas sits second. They've had 3 wins and 2 draws in their last 5 games. Austin sit third. They've lost 2 in a row. 1 to the Galaxy, 1 to RSL. A little bit should be a little deflating for them. They're still only 3 points back though. Galaxy sit fourth. They've lost 2 in their last 5. RSL and Dallas being those. So those are not bad teams to lose to. RSL sit right below the Galaxy. They have 2 losses in their last 5 with 2 wins and a draw. Dynamo sit 6th, even though they've had 3 straight losses before the win against Nashville. Rapids sit 7th. They've had 2 wins and 2 losses and a draw in their last 5. Nashville sit 8th. They just lost to Houston. They beat RSL before that. They drew with Philly at home. Nashville should start turning it on. They're at the home stretch now. They have their own stadium. Let's see if they can do it. Timbers sit 9th. Really, their pattern is 3 draws in their last 5, then a loss and 1 win. Minnesota United, Logan, 3 straight losses. We'll talk about them in a sec. Seattle had 3 straight losses before this win against Minnesota. They still have 2 games in hand of most teams and 3 games in hand of a few. They can certainly get back up there. San Jose in 12th. 2 draws, 2 wins, and a loss. SKC in 13th. 3 draws and 2 losses in their last 5. Vancouver somehow bottom, 8 points. They had a win against TFC, and they lost. They drew with San Jose, and they had 3 straight losses before that. What are your thoughts looking at the Western Conference table?
Thing I'm not shocked by Vancouver. Thing I'm most shocked by the fact that Seattle and Sporting Kansas City. Now, given Seattle have a lot of games to make up, and they're coming out at Champions League, which I haven't talked to you since. That's
yeah,
wild.
you haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
Give your thoughts on that. You predicted it.
Yeah, dude, that's wild. I mean, it's awesome to see an MLS team win it. I wish they didn't play the damn game so late because I can't ever stay up to watch them win it. But I'm getting your text messaging in the morning. So whenever I wake up, I love waking up to West Coast games because Jordan's always updated me on what's going on. And he texts me like by score and stuff and some highlights. So it's great to wake up to because it's like, all right, like I just woke up that morning. I was like just giddy because it really was. I mean, it's something that's special, something that we'll always remember as MLS fans. And really, I mean, the more of these competitions we win, I think the bigger MLS gets. So I think that's ultimately, what Seattle's done for us. I think they've awakened a giant in this league, and I think that eventually MLS is one of those leagues that no longer gets looked at as they're just the wild MLS and the Americans game. But it's much more of like now it's become. I guess on the world stage, I think it's welcome to us to the world stage, and I think hopefully we can kind of push our way through and see what we can do. I would love to be able to get to one of those Club World Cups where we're playing one of the European teams, just because I think it'd be cool. But that being said, I think I'm shocked by that. I think I'm shocked by the bottom of this whole conference, right, Jordan? Like a Nashville, Portland, Seattle. You can even throw Minnesota in there. With Sporting Kansas City. I mean, these are all teams that like made the playoffs last year. So it's like, what's going on? Like everybody that wasn't in the playoffs last year is in the playoffs, and everybody that's out of the playoffs was in the
except for the Rapids.
Right. Yeah.
I think they're the only team that got up there now.
Yeah. I mean, RSL snuck in.
They were in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, because they made that run.
Yeah. So
but, I mean, they made it on
that's
decision
better
day.
than it's been, right? I mean, most of the season we've been talking about the whole top 7 were different teams than last year. So it's getting a little bit more regular, I guess. Okay. Let's talk Portland. They were just an MLS Cup, right?
Mhm.
Is Savarisi's seat a little warm? I saw some people calling for his head, but I mean, they're only look. I mean, there's 4 teams with 15 points here, from 6th place all the way to 9th. So I feel like he's got a pretty good chance of making that playoff spot. So I don't know if I would worry if I'm a Portland fan.
You gotta be
But
careful,
but
like with that.
yeah, it's been kind of what I've been saying all season, though, right? So
Yeah.
there's been times where they could jump in there, but they haven't been.
Yeah, no, I meant like you got to be careful, like not you. You got to be careful if you're Portland or if you're like even if you're Sporting Kansas City. I know this year sucks. I guess you could even throw Schmetzer in there too, but I doubt his is hot because they won that. But I mean, if you're looking at Adrian Smith or somebody like that, like you got to be careful because there's not much else. I don't think there's much else better than Gio. Like I think if you let Gio go, there's a lot of teams that'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely our next guy. Like I feel like he's a huge fish. Like I feel like more so than Caleb Porter. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if they fire him or if Adrian Smith for some reason was fired from Nashville? Or is it Gary Smith? I always get them.
Gary
Smith.
Smith.
Yeah, sorry.
You're mixing
Adrian Heath. Yes, the wrong British guy.
His contract is up at the end of the year.
Now
I'm not so sure they're gonna renew that.
There's no way he stays around. But I guess we could do a whole segment on hot seats. But there's a coach out there, but I don't know if they would ever go after Aaron Almasada. I feel like that's so against what Portland. Although I don't know, they like controversy in Portland, so I don't know. They like making some interesting moves in the front office there, and are some awful people. But
they'll get Gabriel Heinze.
Yeah,
they'll be like, we didn't need our players to have water anyway.
Could you imagine it's Gabriel Heinze and he comes in and he's like, you know who I want to bring in Matias Almeida. I think it would be great.
Oh my goodness.
Matias Almeida ends up, he's like, all right, cool. Let's call Aaron on and see what he's doing.
That sounds a lot like a Chicago move, though. So I'm not going to say anything about that, I guess.
Yeah. But I guess Portland, I mean, 7-2 win. I mean, I know it's over Sporting Kansas City, but Sebastian Blanco finally looks good again.
A huge win.
Yep. So, I mean, Sebastian Blanco is key to what they're doing. I mean, you now are missing Diego Valeri, who's not there this year. So you need somebody to be that kind of guy, that talisman. And I think they've got Sebastian back, and I hope he stays healthy because he's probably one of the more fun guys to watch in this whole league. So
is Vermees's spot hot? It seems like when you're down 2 DPs, I'm not sure you can really do much about that.
Yeah. And another one, you fire him, God, there'd be a lot of people lining up at his door. And that might even include the U.S. national team at this point. Like, I don't know, like you don't make that move now, but I think when Greg gets bounced from World Cup, I think U.S. Men's Federation if Vermees is out there, they go, all right, Greg, you didn't do what we wanted. Like, we're not growing enough. You know what I mean? It's always like that next best thing, and he's the next best thing, I think. So, unless they fire Jesse Marsh, but
looking at the last 5 of the West, the only team that hasn't lost in their last 5 is Dallas, who've been on a good run here. They beat the Galaxy, they beat Seattle, they drew with Sporting. Probably wish they could take that. They beat Houston and drew with the Red Bulls. Jesus Ferreira's got 9 goals.
Remember when I was talking about how good he was? He was not, he's not your average MLS player.
Yeah.
Dude, I'll ask you a question now. Is he your number 9 right now for the U.S. men's national team?
I don't know. I mean, because he's not a real number 9. It'd be a false 9.
He'd be a false, yeah.
I don't like that. I'd rather have somebody up there that has an actual instinct of goal scoring.
He's got 9 goals.
Yeah, it's tough, though. It really is tough because I don't think we'll know until the end of the season. And what I mean by that is the end of the MLS season when we're getting ready to go into the World Cup. You just pick the hottest player at that time. Is what I think. If it's Sargent, if it's Ferreira, if it's got to be somebody that you've called in before, but if it's PFOC, if it's anybody that is Pepe, anybody that is scoring a bucket load of goals at that time is the player that I pull the trigger on, I think. Because you're going to want somebody in form. You're going to want somebody that's scoring goals. And I think right now we can look at Ferreira and say, oh, he's doing well. But it kind of reminds me of any time we've been saying a player's been doing well.
Yeah.
And then eventually they're going to hit that cold streak. So, I mean, unless he keeps it up. But I don't know. I really don't know what they're going to do for the 9. I really don't.
And we got a lot of holes to fill elsewhere, too, with injury concerns. And, with Miles Robinson in them. But it's going to be rough.
Greg's going to have a headache, I think. Making that squad selection is going to be a very tough thing. You're not going to win at all. People are going to be upset it's not some third-tier player in Norway. Some people are going to be upset that it is a third-tier player in Norway. Some people are going to be upset if it's Ferreira. Some people are going to be upset if it's not Ferreira, right? Like, there's no way you can win a squad selection with the amount of depth that we have right now in positions that nobody has staked their claim in. And I think that is the hardest spot. No player has grabbed this by the horns and said, I am the number 9 of this team, and you're going to have to, I'm going to have to like get injured for you to drop me. Nobody has been putting that case up there. Pepe did. He goes to Augsburg. And, that's a tough adjustment for him. Hoppy barely played after he moved, right? Sargent is probably going to have to move again, or he's going to be in the championship and have to score goals there.
PFOC doesn't look like a U.S. men's national team striker.
No. And, talking about DK, he's coming back from injury, right? He's getting worked in. So we don't really know who is going to be this talisman for the U.S. And it's almost the same thing we're kind of with the goalkeeper right now, right? Those are the 2 spots that you don't want question marks, and those are our 2 biggest question marks going into the World Cup right now.
And that's wild because we thought other positions were going to be, but I think we've got a solidified midfield now with Tyler Adams. You got Weston McKennie, who I think are 2 of the best midfielders, in Europe, starting to get to that point where Tyler Adams and Weston are going to start making themselves known and heard because they're so good. I think you've got, like you said, if Gio's healthy, he's one of the top young wingers in Europe. You've got Pulisic, who I think is rotting at Chelsea, but I think once his move goes final and he moves somewhere else, which I think he does, I think that helps him tremendously. Like you said, I think Aaron Long steps now back into that spot with Walker now that Miles is hurt. So I think you've got that solidified. And then I think Jedi is Greg's guy, and Jedi's solid. Like, he's not anything great, but I think then you also have Serginho Dest, who's also, the guy. So yeah, I mean, like you said though, Jordan, the 2 spots you would, if you're going to compete in a World Cup, the 2 spots you need solidified are the 2 spots that we don't really have solidified. Now, that being said, the reason why we don't have the goalkeeper spot solidified is we do have 2 really good keepers that I think both deserve a chance to be the keeper. But then we also have the issue of the 9, where it's like, I don't think we have anybody good enough to be a 9. So that's where we are.
Yeah, goalkeeper, I would almost get like, let's knock on Stefan Fry's door.
Yeah.
Because he's constantly playing. He's really been good. I've always kind of wanted him on the U.S. team, but I kind of thought that ship had sailed. But now it seems like maybe it hasn't. So let's, I don't know, because Gaga's not ready. Turner might be on Arsenal's bench. Stefan has to figure out his situation.
Although the Arsenal thing did get interesting because there was things out now that Arteta doesn't quite like Ramsdale. So maybe.
I'm sure Arsenal fans, though, are not like, you know what we need? Matt Turner. Like, as good as Turner is, like, they want a sexy goalkeeper signing, Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else on the West?
the Galaxy are defending really well, Jordan, but they just aren't scoring. I mean, that's been a big thing for them. Like they were scoring goals last year, they just freaking let everybody else score on them. But if they could get some scoring, I think they're easily a top 4 team in the West. They are currently, but I don't think with their scoring record that they remain that high. I mean, you're going to have teams that kind of sneak up and try to catch you, like a Portland, like a Nashville. I think Seattle comes up eventually.
Yeah, that's the thing. Portland has scored 18, right? If you look at the other teams around Galaxy right now, like RSL, Houston, and Rapids, have all scored 12 and 14 and 13. They have a chance to get it right before that really bites them, I think, because Nashville scored 11, right? That's a team that could come get them. Portland scored 18. That's a team that can get them, but they also give up 18. Minnesota scored 12. Seattle scored 12. Seattle, though, scored 12 in 9 games. So there could be, with 2 more games, they could overtake the goal total of the Galaxy. But I think Galaxy are fairly protected right now with all those other teams' lack of scoring. Because if you look above the Galaxy, that's when you have Austin with 23, Dallas with 19, and LAFC with 23. So that is a very just a tough thing right now. It seems in the West to score goals, right? If you're outside those top 3 and then you have San Jose of 19, but they give up 26, and like I said, Portland with 18. Everybody else has been in the 10 to 12 range, which is pretty crazy. The East is scoring goals a lot easier than the West is right now.
And Dallas, I didn't realize how many Americans Dallas had until I was looking at their roster. Brandon Cervania, who's been really, really good as a midfielder, 23 years old, American, 3 assists, 1 goal in 10 matches played, 8 starts, pretty young kid. Paul Arriola's been great, which who knew that would have worked out, right? I think that was just more about if he stayed healthy. You got Marco Farfan, who I forgot was American, who's played really well in defense, has 2 assists. Jesus Ferreira, 9 goals, 1 assist. You got Paxton Pomykal. Jordan, I think that's the biggest surprise of them all. 11 games played, 11 games started. Healthy Paxton Pomykal. You got to see more of that as, he was a big hype when he was coming through, kind of like Aiden Morris is now. But you got 2 guys. I mean, you got a whole Dallas roster that's, surviving on American blood. And it's proven to be pretty good. I thought losing Ryan Hollingshead would have been huge. And as well as he's played with the LAFC, they're sniffing right up next to him. So Dallas is fun to watch. And they are fun to watch. They're way better to watch than they ever have been since I've started watching. They're exciting. So
kind of reminds me of the Pereira Dallas. They were fun to watch back then. Look, this is, people were kind of like, really, they're going to change managers, right? I felt like some people were kind of like against them changing managers, but it's working out right now.
And they're stomping out good teams too. Their defense, 8 goals, that's how stout they've been. And they don't have Ryan Hollingshead, who is one of the better defenders in this whole league. So, yeah. Wow. Now they just need fans.
Good for Dallas.
Yeah.
They're one of the original teams that have not won an MLS Cup as well. So, them, Revs. Geez, am I missing anybody else? Red Bull. That's pretty close, I think. Yeah, that should be all of the originals that have not won an MLS Cup. So there you go. Not much left for them to do. And, they had always been really good, and they just need to be able to get on the right foot. That's about it, right? Anything else that you wanted to touch on before we head out?
Nope. I think that's pretty much it. Got in everything that I missed. Big injuries. Transfer deadline's coming. Got a couple weeks.
Yeah, we talked about average age. Toronto's is 26.5, which is actually about middle of MLS right now. So maybe we overstated that, but just want to give a little correction.
I don't know. They got a lot of young dudes. That brings the average down.
Yeah.
When you're playing 7-year-olds, I mean,
they have an average of 52% possession.
keep the ball but can't do anything with it.
Yeah. There you go. They've used 25 of their players of their squad.
That's insane.
The Union have only used 18. Maybe
Nice.
they're getting a little tired. Maybe that's the least amount. Maybe that's why they were having some trouble. I don't know. No rotation, right? Who knows? Just numbers I'm reading here on FBref to back up some claims that we've made. But yeah, so looking forward to what else we got going on here. We didn't go over match of the week preview. We kind of had to catch up on some stuff. But Wednesday, May 18th, we have DC versus NYCFC, 7:30. Red Bulls versus Chicago at 7:30. Union versus Miami, also at 7:30. Minnesota, they've lost 3 straight. They go up against the Galaxy. That's an interesting matchup at Allianz Field, 8 o'clock, 8:30. Houston versus Seattle. SKC versus Colorado at 8:30. Nashville versus Montreal at 8:30. That's one I think I would do match of the week. It's a struggling Nashville team at home at Geodis Park, hosting the Eastern Conference champions. Montreal. Not champions, but current first place. Sorry, I crowned them too early. 10 o'clock, Vancouver, FC Dallas. 10:30, LAFC versus Austin. That's another great matchup. San Jose versus Portland at 10:30. Those are all on Wednesday. Saturday, we got Columbus versus LAFC at 3:30 on Unimas, TUDN, and Twitter. 4 o'clock is DC and Toronto. 6 o'clock is Cincy, New England. And Nashville at 7:30 against Atlanta. That's on Fox. Big Fox. Sunday, we had like 2 games this week. This week, we had a million. There is no consistency here. Montreal, 4 o'clock versus RSL. Charlotte versus Vancouver at 5. NYCFC versus Chicago at 5. Miami and New York at 6. Dallas, Minnesota at 7. San Jose, SKC at 7:30. Austin, Orlando at 8. Colorado, Seattle at 8. LAFC versus Houston at 8. And Portland, Philly at 10 o'clock on FS1. And yeah, so only one prime time game on Sunday, and it's the 10 o'clock game, of course. Then we have Open Cup next Wednesday, the 25th. We'll talk about that next week because we didn't get a chance to really talk too much about it this week. There you go. If you want to follow us on any platform, it's at Stateside Show. That's it. Reach out to us. Let us know your thoughts. Correct us on any stats we messed up. And I guess we'll catch you next time.